Gone are the days when we downloaded our favorite songs onto our MP3 players, not to mention listening to CDs and cassette tapes. Most of us log into music streaming platforms to get access to all the latest songs you can listen to online over and over again. Nowadays, it's not difficult to spot K-pop artist songs on top global streaming services like iTunes and Spotify. Today, we want to delve into these platforms that appear to be an important indicator of K-pop's global influence. We are now connected to Professor Saeji at Busan National University. Good to see you again, Professor Saeji.
Hello, Professor.
Good to see you, Walter.
So let's begin with the latest top rankings of K-pop acts and their songs on major international streaming platforms. Who's currently up high?
Well, of course, Rosé and Bruno Mars are still doing great. And Jimin's Who is maintaining a really high spot, number 5 on Spotify Global Top 50. So very proud of that. Jin's Running Wild at number 11. And Rosé's Number 1 Girl has now been released and it's rising up the charts at 31. Jennie's song together with The Weeknd and Lily Rose Depp is holding on near the bottom of the 50. And so if we look at some other charts, we can see similar artists showing up on other charts. Apple Music's Top 100 Global. We can also see aespa's Quiplash and Misamo, if we want to count that song in Japanese as K-pop, is also there on the chart. And other charts, we can see Jennie's Mantra is still there. Lisa's Moonlit Floor, G-Dragon's Power, even Jungkook and Lotto 7 is still on some charts. So lots of K-pop is available on these streaming charts, and it's pretty easy for fans to find.
I mean, in the past, you could see many of those acts having those one-time achievements on these big charts, but these days we're seeing so many of them continuously still on the charts, so I think that is significant. But how important is it really to be ranked on certain streaming platforms?
Well, for a lot of casual listeners, it's common just to listen through the top songs. But even if you don't listen through the top songs to find out what's come out, the algorithm actually rewards songs that are doing really well, and it amplifies their reach to new listeners. Of course, every platform uses listener history. So if you usually listen to heavy metal, they're probably not going to give you a K-pop song. But if a song is doing well on a streaming platform, the platform will automatically serve up that same song to listeners that, based on their history, may enjoy the song. And so people are getting introduced to K-pop casually without even meaning to at this point.
I see.
Yes, so Professor, I was talking in my K-Enter segment about ATEEZ and how well they're doing in the streaming at the moment. Have these streaming platforms actually played an important role in the global spread of K-pop?
Oh, it's absolutely undeniable that global streaming has played a huge role in K-pop's spread, mostly because in the past it was really hard for people outside of East Asia to access hard copies of releases. Like, they literally were not carried by resellers outside of East Asia. And even after the hard copy era ended, before the rise of platforms like YouTube and Spotify with a global reach, you wouldn't even necessarily know that there had been a recent release, much less be able to find it. So I remember actually when it was newsworthy, it would be in the Korea Times or the Korea Herald if a K-pop artist was being sold on iTunes, because not all of them were. So with this streaming, a new K-pop release is like 1 or 2 clicks away from potential listeners. And YouTube has been phenomenal for K-pop because the stunning visuals in K-pop videos really can hook people in. You know, if you look at YouTube right now, the top 20 songs for yesterday, top 20 videos, 7 of them were K-pop songs, including some of the live recordings from the Mama Awards ceremony.
It's really interesting. Recently, we've been observing how songs released by K-pop stars tend to be shorter in length than in the past. Example, G-Dragon's Power, as well as Jennie's Mantra. Is that also due to the influence of streaming platforms, do you think?
Well, before I answer that question, just a little bit of music history trivia. The whole reason that songs are usually 3 to 5 minutes is because when they made records in the very early days of recording, you had a single side record and it could only hold about 3.5 minutes worth of music. And so that became the norm because of technological limitations. But then after kind of radio took over as being the primary way that music got out there, radio would edit songs and make them shorter, make them around 3 minutes in order to leave time for advertisements. So there's a lot of different factors going into the length question. But if we look at like the songs getting shorter, it's not just K-pop, it's all of the songs that are getting shorter. The influence of TikTok and short form video can really be felt because it feels like these days it's like 15 seconds of the song really matters because of the dance challenge or it being recycled in other videos, and the rest of it is less important. But specifically streaming, if a song is played all the way through the song, it ranks higher in the algorithm. So if you have like a long intro to your song, which may then mean that the song is more than 3 minutes long, it in fact increases the skip rate, which is risky and can end up costing you financially as an artist. And so the artists are being incentivized to make songs that are shorter, that don't have any fat around the edges, and that keep listeners engaged. And if you look at the Spotify hit songs from 2023, half of the hit songs were under 3 minutes, which is proof that on streaming platforms, a shorter song really does better.
That is very interesting. And speaking of strategies, not only the length of a song, do you think that streaming services actually changed the release of songs and albums, especially on the back of the popularity of K-pop overseas?
Yeah, I definitely think so. You know, initially when we had the possibility of digital releases, artists felt kind of freed from the need to create this whole long album, which might include some filler songs that were a little less inspired. But the industry also has really enjoyed this shift because time to debut is shorter, and the time between comebacks has also become shortened as well because you could just release, singles. This is something that a lot of K-pop fans definitely appreciate, but I do think that there's a downside in that the full-length album allows artists to explore other sides of themselves and to release songs that may not be geared to become large hits, but maybe dearer to their own hearts and the direction that they want to move as artists. And so I am a little sad about what I see as the slow extinction of the album.
And how has fandom culture or the way K-pop fans consume music been impacted by streaming?
Well, streaming services and desire to stay on top of these different services has really caused the companies to lean into the organized, highly motivated fan clubs. And, fan interest in a new track can give it this algorithmic boost that it needs to get played by the algorithm for people who aren't ordinarily K-pop listeners. And K-pop fans are very well aware of the impact of charting on their favorite idols, and they work really hard to make these goals happen. If you see something like ATEEZ having this new release, you can also see organized campaigns on social media where fans are saying, okay, this is our goal, this is a country in which we need to make that goal. And, they're congratulating each other and they're going after these goals of a certain amount of album sales, a certain ranking on the charts. And I know fans who keep an old cell phone constantly plugged in and constantly streaming playlists that include many of their favorite artist songs around the clock 24/7. So It's not even always completely organic listens.
All right, Professor Saeji, finally, do you believe there is a need for a strategic shift for K-pop artists as well as their production companies in this streaming-driven market to further strive?
Well, I actually, as the spouse of an independent musician, I'm really worried about the emphasis on streaming. I see how bad it is for artists. It's also bad for the environment. But the payout to artists is absolutely horrible. Just a small fraction of what artists earn from selling albums or even selling MP3 files. So the average payout for a stream is less than 1/10 of 1 US cent per stream. So less than 1/10 of 1 Korean won. To put it in simple terms, if an artist receives 100% of the revenue for streaming, which they don't, because there's a songwriter, an agency, a music distributor, musicians, producer, all these other people. But if they receive 100% of the money, they need around 2.4 million streams per month to earn the average monthly salary of an office worker in Korea. But since all the artists on a track, including the musicians and the backup singers, only earn about 15% of the payout from the track for streaming, divided by the number of singers and musicians, you can easily imagine that members in like a 5-person group are going to earn less than 3% of the payout per stream. And I just told you the payout per stream is less than 1/10 of 1 US cent. So, and it gets worse. Like the payout per stream varies based on the country of the person who is streaming and if they're a premium subscriber or not. And the payout to artists is not consistent for all artists. In fact, it pays out more to bigger artists, except for in France, which passed a law in 2022 requiring all streams from all streaming services to pay the same amount per song. But yeah, the entire system is kept really hard for lay people to understand, and artists have non-disclosure agreements, and so they can't really complain about how little they're earning. But as fans just go with the convenience of streaming, we're actually seeing a cost to the artists. So on behalf of the artists, I want to remind fans that your favorites will benefit more if you purchase albums. And if you do continue streaming, I would like you to investigate which streaming services pay the most to the artists, because they don't pay out at the same rate.
Definitely something to keep a mind on. Thank you very much, Professor Saeji, for your insights on this interesting topic today.
Thank you, Professor.
All right, have a good one.